Tuesday, January 20th, 2026. I have a roll call, please. Kim, thank you.
Me,
Here.
Sima,
Here.
Babcock,
Here.
Rhoda,
Here.
Wright,
Here.
Gustafson.
No, you did it.
I'm gonna do it again.
But you need to do it again.
A motion for Mike Simon so moved. Second.
Under discussion, I've confirmed in talking with the chairman that trustee Sima is away for one of the covered reasons under the statute. And so that's why you have to make the motion. We're not going to identify which one because we don't want to invade his privacy.
Thank you.
Mead,
Yes.
Babcock,
Yes.
Rhoda,
Yes.
Sima,
Yes.
and Wright.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
I'm not sure you should have voted on its own.
It's on.
Okay.
I was gonna get there.
That's all right.
Okay, we have two items for approval of the minutes. First, number one, approval of the minutes for the meeting of the committee of the whole from December 16th, 2025. So moved.
Second.
Rhoda,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Sima,
Yes.
Mead,
Yes.
Babcock.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Second one, approval of the minutes for the meeting of the committee of the whole from January 6th of 2026.
Make a motion. Second.
Sima,
Yes.
Babcock,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Mead,
Yes.
Rhoda.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, first of two public comment sessions this evening. Anyone with public comment in the first? Good, thank you. New business, number 3, introduction and preliminary discussion of a requested amendment. Special use permit at 14165 Second Street, owned by Rogers Ready Mix. Is there anyone here or there that wants to speak up on the amendment?
So Clay wants to introduce it.
Yeah,
We have.
introduce it, and I'll have,
Perfect.
alrighty, so, Rogers Ready Mix has changed owners. And they were originally approved for a, special use, for extraction and, concrete ready mix. And they were approved with a site plan, with this proposal, and they would like to amend what was approved. Current mining operations expanded beyond what the original approval was for, not by our current owners, but over time. So that accurately reflects what is currently there. And they are requesting to expand the area that they'd like to mine, and also expand how long that they could mine for, that they've done some preliminary tests and have been able to see that there is about 75 years worth of material that could continue when currently their special use ends at 2045. But I will let the applicant and their consultant answer any additional questions that you guys have or provide any additional information. So tonight, this is just an informational purpose. I felt like it would be helpful for you guys to kind of know the project, and if you had any requests before this would go to ZBA, that this would be a good time for ask the applicant questions. So there we go.
Okay, my name is Tim Kenny. I'm the general manager of Prairie Aggregates.
Can you spell your last name?
Kenny is Kenney. Grab my papers.
And you're from where?
BCNA Prairie is our company name. So we acquired Rogers Ready Mix in May of 2025. Just give you a brief history on BCNA. We operate 13 snow quarries, 3 sand and gravel pits in Illinois and Indiana. We are part of BCNA acquired Prairie in 2008, so we're a global company, but we do feel that we operate well in local communities. A little history of myself. I came from family business and Prairie acquired us in 2021. So I do like to operate locally. We retain all the employees of Rogers, really have not changed much operationally, but besides when we did take on this plan, we met with the mayor, I believe this spring, met with Joe a few times, met with Brandon a few times. And then we went in and hired RH Vanderman to recommend a new site plan at the end of the life of the mine because the current one in place isn't very feasible based on mining practices of the past. So Nicholas with RH, you want to show the site plans and we can explain them, answer any questions you have?
Joe actually has them up here on the screen.
Okay,
So, working with Joe, Brandon, and Hillary, they were requested to prepare three exhibits. You know, current site plan exhibit, which clearly shows where the area of active mining to date and kind of where aggregate staging and operations area is. This bold line is the line of what the original tract was for the site, and you can see how the active mining actually extended north of that tract forward. The next exhibit we prepared was a future mining exhibit, which shows the expanded, what we'd be proposing for expanded tract 4 based off of the evaluation material there. And like I mentioned, there's an estimated additional 75 years of potential material there that can be mined. So this would be a preliminary future mining sequence. And then we're also asked to prepare a concept for an updated reclamation plan since the previous approved reclamation plan is no longer feasible. And so working with DCMA, prepared updated reclamation plan exhibit for discussion. Right now, the plan is to have the whole parcel kind of be a future recreational area with a large pond in the middle. This be a recreational future development, maybe a trail kind of going through and connecting, and then the yellow area being like an open park.
so we've done several of these in the past, and as I mentioned, the residential plan is not feasible right now. So we've done several recreational areas, which is great for local communities. So we would, as Nicholas mentioned, that'd be the outline of the water. We would actually could construct, and this would be, we would turn it over to a third party for developing, but it would be walking path around the edge of the water, and then another potential one up on the level ground. And this is all 4-to-1 slope down to the water, because based on the water table, from the ground level, the water table is about 40 to 45 feet. So that's part of the negativity of having the residence. There'd be a 40, 45 feet drop down to the water. So it's based on the water table, it's not feasible as a residential area. But we have learned that you develop a nice park, walking paths, have a nice parking area with, pavilions. It makes a very nice community property down the road.
Can you speak about the green?
Yeah, so this would just kind of be a green area. I'm not sure if you folks have been by there, but there's nice berms around the property. So we would put a berm on the backside, grow up the trees. For that subdivision, there is a fence all the way around the property. So this could just be a nice recreation area for development.
What side is 251?
It would be on the west side.
Okay.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, you guys do a good job of keeping it up. I drive by
Thank you.
it pretty much every day. It looks nice. You
Good.
don't see anything.
No.
So 75 years you're asking?
Yes, and
So
that's
the reclamation doesn't happen for 75 years? Or
correct.
it's-
Yeah,
So
because
75 years, we won't be here.
correct. Yep, I won't either.
There's a great plan 75 years from now.
Yes,
You have 75 years of digging.
that's
How
based on
deep
our.
is that gonna be?
So right now, we're down about 40 to 45 feet, and there's still material below water. So right now, we're above the water table.
But you can dig for 75 more years.
That's estimated right now.
Yeah.
We did we came in and drilled, did a full reserve analysis before we acquired it.
And that's just gravel and sand?
Sand and gravel. Yeah, so I understand there is no blasting in this operation. It's just, right now it's dry banks, wet feed. So extraction process does not require blasting. But this whole area, actually, can you go back a couple, please? I think to the first one. One more. Yeah, so this whole area here is all down to about 34 feet above the water table. And then eventually we'll actually bring in a drag line or a dredge and actually extract below the water table. So that might not have been planned. So we'll maximize the reserve on this property.
Is there a road on the other side of that pit?
What side, sir?
West side.
That is the subdivision we put up against. And
That's the east
we're
side.
building a berm here that we'll eventually vegetate. As you remove the overburden off the site, we can build the berms to help. Well, just like you mentioned. if
Yeah,
you don't build
you
the
can't
business.
see anything.
Right, yeah.
There actually is an existing berm there. I imagine
There
as they excavate further, the berm area would just expand.
Open fishing?
Good question. I guess that's for the community 75 years down the road side.
So the reason for asking them to update the reclamation plan is because a part of the original approval, there was one, and it's not feasible anymore, so that's. I know we can't really talk, it looks like a great idea, but we should replace it with something.
So tonight it's just to provide us information.
Yeah, I wanted you guys to have an opportunity to talk to them and ask questions, and if you wanted anything as a part of their ZBA submittal, do you want any additional information, or you have questions and stuff, so that,
And it's not possible to do any reclamation till 75 years on the parts of the mine.
No, because it's
The
an
whole
active
thing.
mine, so we have mine safety and health administration. Come in and do random visits. We have all of our permittings in place. It's not a safe area for residents. It's because the whole thing is an active mine.
I'm not gonna be here in 75 years, but
Right.
in San Antonio, familiar with, I used to live there. They had the same kind of thing, and apparently in 75 years prior, because they did build houses. Turned it into, and then all kinds of development down below it. Another day, so, okay, thank you.
And we always reclaim as we go. You put the dirt, find the rest in place. So we're reclaiming whenever we're moving dirt. But the finished product can't be until all the big equipment's out, the processing, all that sort of thing.
if, for instance, they wanted to do the plan sooner, they could. We will condition the special use to be
Yeah.
that way,
Yeah.
That makes sense, as soon as they're done with getting what they can from the space.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
If it's 50 years, if it's
Right.
75.
You guys are done, you know what I mean? Who
Right,
knows?
yeah, the 75 years serves is a max, so who knows, it could be done sooner, but it's all based on the economic conditions. You might hit a pocket bad deposit that you have to board and go around it. You just never know until you get into the mine, and it's based on the economy as well.
And this is what what we're talking about, the changes to, this is the original plan from, what year was this?
96.
96. So this is where they were planning to be this year. This line on my mouse, this is 2025, and then 2045 was originally so they're asking to go out past that now. But yeah, this is what the original approval they're working on right now.
Trustee, Simon, I had a question. I had a
Yeah.
question for you guys.
Sure.
You guys have been there since when Rogers Ready Mix has been there for 96. So I'm just wondering, and you seem like great neighbors. I haven't heard any complaints. Have you guys had any complaints, formal complaints, anything from neighbors, from residents, from, nuisance complaints? I have not heard any. Are you guys aware of any
No. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, what would you say at the end?
No, it's just since 1996. I mean, one complaint, two, none. Like, do you have any
No,
idea?
none to my knowledge, and Jeff Rakes, who's not here tonight, he's our ops manager. He's been actually with Rogers 30 years, and we kept him on. So Jeff's there all the time, and I have talked to him about it, and they've had no complaints. No, a very good, Roger's been a great community member, and then we're planning on continuing the same, being active in the community and all that sort of thing, but no complaints to my knowledge.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good, yep. I mean, I know Prairie, well, I don't know the new company, but Prairie, I had a family member that worked there until he retired, whatever his career. Good. So, no questions here. All good.
And of course, we're fully regulated, fully permitted. We have so many standards and regulations we have to abide by that even if you weren't, there's conditions you have to go or you get cited or shut down. So we're very regulated. And we do not want to create a bad reputation because you get one area, it spreads to the other ones.
Just curious, how many employees?
Worldwide, like 1,800.
But I mean, in that.
Oh, I'm sorry. There'd be, well, the ready mix drivers, there's probably 20.
Is that primary, the product they work for concrete?
Yes, yep. And then the aggregates for the sand and gravel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Number 4, discussion and recommendation to extend the contractual tree maintenance and removal contract. Tree Care Enterprises, Inc. You guys have any insight that you prepared?
We've had, great results with Tree Care. They're great every time we call them for emergencies or just not emergency. Their team, they're very professional. We've extended this contract, last year, and this year we're asking to extend it again. This will be the last year they want to extend it without going out to bid again. With keeping the prices obviously the same and
Motion to approve and move to board.
Yeah.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Yep.
Simon, John, Broda?
Babcock,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Rhoda,
Yes.
Sima,
Yes.
Mead.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, number 5, discussion and overview of the capital improvement program, CIP, by Fairgram Engineering and Environmental. Presented by, I'm guessing, Tyler and Brandon. Fire away.
Good evening, everybody. If we continue down this road of planning out, you're talking budgeting tonight. I mean, this is just another aspect of it, is budgeting for capital improvement projects. So just had a brief kind of presentation to talk a little bit about maybe focusing us on establishing some priorities and maybe some ideas to how to leverage your funds. So you can bring more dollars back to the community. And then the project list that we previously had kind of talked through, we've updated, made a couple updates on that. So I'm going to walk through that and then just see if we can have some discussion on your priorities and what you might want to see. We have the presentation to put up there. Okay. I have a hard copy of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll just get started then, if that's fine.
You got an extra one?
Yeah.
Got it, thanks.
I think I had one, but I. Okay, so,
Thank you.
wanted to step through and, first, the project list is more at the end, but before we get to that point, I just wanted to step through some thoughts on your revenues and establishing priorities. So, an effective capital improvement program really begins with your projected revenues. You were talking revenues earlier. Knowing what we can start with to start the year, the X, and then we subtract out the Y's of all the projects and we end up right with Z, what's left. But it begins with that X number. And without kind of knowing or planning with those revenues annually, proper planning and then implementation becomes challenging because, we'll get to the point where a project's designed, ready for bid, and the funds aren't there to do it. But Brandon, on the next slide, if you could. Per our conversation 2 weeks ago when we were here, the number was kind of floated about anticipating about $750,000 annually for capital projects in your current budget. And if you recall, going back to last fall, I believe, when we first came here and talked about the street study, if you remember those, the pavement condition ratings that we talked about, and dedicating $500,000 minimum to your residential streets was necessary to even just keep your PCR level static, even maybe losing a little bit of ground over a 5-year period. So obviously it's a function of priorities, but the recommendation that came out of that street study was we probably shouldn't go below 500,000 minimum dedicated to residential streets. So doing the math there, right, that only leaves about 250,000. So with that amount left, we really, probably want to consider focusing on needs rather than wants.
and the ability to leverage those funds that are remaining to bring more dollars back here. And also to kind of let the metrics that we've talked about and the village's vision guide how to fill in that, those projects in the eventual capital improvement program. From what Brandon and I have talked about and with Mayor and with Joe and with the board, what we're kind of hearing, I kind of ranked here the needs based on what we've heard, which obviously is your prerogative if we want to change, but we've heard, that the residential streets is very important. To continue allocating dollars towards that. We've heard, and we had a pretty good discussion when we were here 2 weeks ago about the parks. It seems like that's an amenity that's very popular for the village, used frequently. That allocating some dollars towards park improvements is important. For pedestrian accommodations, whether it's filling in sidewalk gaps throughout the village or improving your bike paths and your multi-use path system. Stepping down on public safety improvements, upgrading street lights or lighting or striping projects for crosswalks. And then we get down to, maybe some of the more wants as opposed to immediate needs, but that could tick up this list, and that includes bridge maintenance. We talked briefly about you do have a load posted structure in the village. Was it Willowbrook, Brandon? Willowbrook Road. That does have a posting that cannot accommodate vehicles of any weight. That as that continues to deteriorate, that can become obviously a public safety issue as well, and an economic issue if the road is unable to be utilized by all sorts of commercial vehicles. And then we talk about, your larger scale roadway projects that we've been talking about for a number of years, the Love Road, the Willowbrook Road, the Main Street. And when we get to the project list, you'll see we kind of broke that into phases, maybe a little more manageable chunks. Still large chunks, but maybe a little less, a little more able to be managed. And also want to talk a little bit about some potential to maybe leverage some funds to help fund those projects. And then, looking at other municipal projects like your buildings, your parking lots here, we talked about some parking lots here in the Main Street corridor. So this next slide, I wanted to go to and kind of talk about the ability to leverage some of your funds. At the top there is some available grant programs that are available to all municipalities here in the state. There's several IDOT grant programs, including the Safe Routes to School, that will help finance any sort of sidewalk that improves a pedestrian access to a school. The Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program, that's typically geared towards bike paths, larger multi-use paths. The Truck Access Route Program, that's going to improve your commercial corridors to make intersection improvements and road widening to handle more of your 18-wheeler type vehicles. And the Highway Safety Improvement Program, that's a program that if you have an intersection with a history of accidents or a street with a history of speeding or something that can tangibly show it's a safety issue, that's a program you're able to apply for. Each one of these has different matching components to it. I also would say each one of these brings, from the engineering side, some more challenges than if you were using your own funds, because you have to play by the state rules for them. But they are eligible to, if you have a project that you could identify that fits in one of these buckets, you might, some of these it's 50%, some it's 20%, bring your funds to get those matching dollars back. And those are, I believe the TARP and the HSIP are annual programs. The Safe Routes to School and the ITEP alternate years. So I think this year is a ITEP year, next year is a Safe Routes to School year. So those alternate. Another program that's through the USDOT, but it's facilitated through IDOT, a build grant. That's I think you're considered a rural community, so there's actually zero matching dollars on that, but it's an extremely competitive program, as you can imagine, because it's federal. I know R1PC, the Regional and Planning Council, pursues these fairly frequently on behalf of municipalities that are part of that council. A couple from the Department of Natural Resources, obviously the OSLED, we talked about that with Porter Park, that's a 50-50 match grant. And then we've kind of mentioned this one in the past, but the boat access and development grant, that could be a potential funding source for your boat ramp at Riverside Park. That's an annual program. I don't know what the match is. I can't speak to that, but it's either 20 or actually, I don't, it's a maximum of maybe like 200,000, 250,000 or something like that, but I don't know exactly what your match is, but that's another available grant and resource. Thinking a little more outside the box, other funding sources, the village does have a motor fuel tax funds that they receive annually from the state. I think historically, those funds have been put into a bucket to be used to match some of these future larger projects. But if the village wants, those funds can be used for other uses, allowable uses, and there's a decent amount of latitude given to local communities for that. I put down here bridge or culvert design engineering. If it's something that you wanted to pursue, you could use your MFT funds to design the repairs to your load posted structure now while you wait for that funding. But then the plans are on the shelf, ready to go. And that's an allowable expense through using your motor fuel tax funds. You can use it for roadway resurfacing and patching. I know we're doing a project for South Beloit right now where they're resurfacing some roadways and doing some patching with the motor fuel tax funds. But then also they're matching funds for all those IDOT grants listed. Whether it's the ITEP, the TARP, the HSIP, I'd have to check if you can use MFT to manage safe routes to school. I'm not 100% certain on that, but the other ones for sure, you could use, if you had to match one of those 20%, you could use your MFT dollars to match that. That would be an allowable expense as well. So there's several uses for that, for your MFT funds if you wanted to go down that road, just an option. Another thought is intergovernmental agreements. Often Fort River Sanitation Authority will do special assessment projects where they extend sewer to communities to neighborhoods that are still on septic tanks. As part of that, they're redoing the roads they come through. They usually try to do one of those projects a year. I know you have some areas close to the village all year that are still on septic, fairly small lots. And so that's a program that, we certainly can talk to Four Rivers and see if they have any upcoming projects that you maybe could partner with them on. Same with North Park Public Water, if they're extending water anywhere. Winnebago County Highway Department, they regularly partner with other municipalities to do intersection improvements. If they have 2 legs of the intersection and you have 2 legs, that they'll cost share to do the intersection improvements. And then also, like we talked about earlier, Regional Planning Council, they're constantly on the lookout for grants and ability to assist municipalities with seeking leverage funds. So probably just scratching the surface there, but just some ideas for when you're looking at your capital bucket, how you can stretch that a little further by utilizing some of these grants. Now, right, do they come with strings attached? Absolutely. You take somebody else's money, you have to follow their rules, but most of the municipalities that we do work with will pursue grants of this nature. So it's a hurdle that can be over. So,
Quick question.
yeah,
You said the safe routes to school was in 26 or 27?
it is. I think it's a 27. I think this is an ITEP year. And I think the submissions are usually October 1st of each year. And those you don't want to get to like September 1st and just start then, because they like to see you have some letters of support. They might like to see an authorizing ordinance of support from the village board. So, and usually a public meeting or two. They like to see those, and those help you get them awarded. So
Is that like pedestrian pathways when it says safe routes? What would fall in that bucket?
yeah, there's a lot of it's a pretty broad definition. To be completely candid with you, a lot of municipalities don't like applying for those funds because they oftentimes turn pennies from hell because of all the rules you have to follow. So it's actually very readily available. But we have seen it used before for push button activated signals to cross a busy street, like a mid-block crossing where there's no stoplights. use, you know, a sidewalk to connect a neighborhood that maybe has no sidewalk to a school. It has to begin, right, Brandon? It has to begin.
Yeah, it has to begin at a school, and I believe that it can extend up to a mile or a mile and a half
Yeah,
away from the school.
yeah.
But you have to show continuous path, continuous ADA access as part of that project.
And on the other end, you have to drop them off somewhere where it's not just the middle of a road, like it's gotta have a logical end to each. Yeah,
So some of the discussions that we've had, for instance, on the safe routes to school has been some of the Main Street crossings, right? We know that our crossings need to be improved, so we have loosely discussed going after a project for improving some crosswalks along main streets. You know, I guess there would be one crosswalk for the school out on Elevator Road. That actually the Stonebridge Trail crossing at Elevator Road, that could be a potential. They've got a path from their school to the Stonebridge Trail, nothing beyond that. You know, it's just it's a uncontrolled crossing, so there's no stop signs. You know, there's just the pavement striping and signage.
Chestnut, same path.
Yep, exactly, same thing. So, you know, we'd have to look at the limits as far as, you know, how far that is from an existing school, but that's absolutely a program that we could go after. And again, you know, some of these grants, you can do design engineering, construction costs, and construction engineering oversight. Some grants you might decide, hey, we don't have the money to fund the construction, but the grant says that even just preliminary engineering is an eligible expense. So one cycle you could do just some preliminary engineering, public meetings, and get, you know, the feedback from the community, letters of support, you know, kind of do the project planning. And then in its next cycle, you can start planning for construction costs over your CIP. And then that way, you know, the next cycle, you're more readily prepared for submitting the grant application. So it's all a game, right? Each grant has its own requirements, own eligible expenses, matching funds that differ greatly. So it's really, you know, what are the priority projects? What are the grants that you want to go after? And what are what the funding that the village has available?
yeah, and there's even more that, you know, we didn't list here that I know we've given I think a fairly comprehensive list to the mayor of other programs, but like there's economic development program through IDOT, where if you have a business that's looking to expand but needs some infrastructure improvements for it, you know, if you can tie that to the project to their expansion, you can get some funds for that. I know down by the Rockford Airport, they redid, been down there, they redid, this is, oh gosh, 12 years ago, I'm dating myself, but Falcon Road and Airport Drive, and there's a roundabout there in the north, and all that was financed with a economic development program grant. Because PCI expanded and all the just industry down there, so they were able to leverage a significant amount of dollars to do that.
All Railway was the same. Yeah, we use ITEP for that, I think, or we use ITEP for it. Yeah,
Okay.
All Railway, we paid for with that, and
Yeah.
same with some reconstruction over by.
Yep.
So we have developers come and ask, and we bring them to the village or to the state.
Yeah, yep. I won't go too in depth on the following slides because you've seen most of this information before. You know, we talked about how we rank the projects before, the metrics we use, the public safety, economic considerations, funding availability, readiness, comprehensive plan considerations, and public impact, and how we kind of ranked everything on a 1 to 5 to give each a metric scoring in the different categories. So this project list, I don't know that we added anything besides on the roadways. We broke Willowbrook and Love Road up into phasing to make them slightly more manageable. You know, thinking like Willowbrook, we could break it into a phase of doing the intersection with Rockton Road, doing the intersection with McCurry, and then a final phase of connecting those to just give that a little more logical progression. Love Road doesn't set up into phasing quite as well because of the complete realignment. You could do the south portion, about 1,300 foot north of McCurry, and then the other portion from there to the north. So we did break those up and make those a little more palatable, but they're still expensive projects that would require some type of outside property funding source to leverage. for the village's dollars. So, and these, I will note, these costs that we used in the tables, the total cost, if there's any engineering required, those numbers are in there. So that we're looking at this as an all-in number. And we, I believe, budgeted it fairly conservatively if it based on current dollars. So, you know, that's, I guess, kind of what we're looking then, some feedback on potential priorities or different items to pursue. You know, I know we're doing a heavier, or at least we're trying to bid a heavier residential street resurfacing package this year with an alternate bid involved to try to stretch that funding a little further. But, you know, if you're looking at it now, we don't have the dollars to build one of these projects this year. Well, is there maybe one that we can start design on now and at least start to advance it and get it on the shelf? Or is there one of these grants that, you know, you spend a few $1,000s to pull some of the documents together to apply for and set yourself up for future years? So I think, yeah, we would just be love to hear just some feedback in terms of what you think the priorities should be and what we should focus on. And then we can, you know, start to pull together a little bit of a annual program and for everybody's review.
So one thing I'd like to add, right, you know, we talked about $750,000 in budget is what we've been given at this point, or provided, estimating $500,000 a year in residential streets programs, right? So that delta, that leftover, we're talking about $250,000 per year for projects. Projects for next year, 2026, that's obviously been, you know, accounted for some of our various projects. So we're looking at, you know, 4 years out past that. You know, I think from our perspective, even just general categories of projects that you would like to focus on, right? Like we know there's going to be some maintenance that has to be done, Class D patching program. There's going to be bridge repairs that are needed to just keep the bridges serviceable and usable. We can bank in the stuff that, you know, we believe that the village absolutely has to have. It's really beyond that. Do we want to focus on parks? Do we want to focus on municipal buildings? Do we want to focus on, pedestrian paths? Getting some of that feedback, as you guys see, you know, some of these project costs are in the millions of dollars. And if we have $250,000 a year, it's kind of tough for us to budget anything. We don't want to come to you and just say, do engineering on a bunch of projects. But I guess, yeah, we need some feedback on at least the general priorities. I don't know if we absolutely need to have that at this meeting. We're fine with you guys contacting us separately and submitting your priorities. If you want to get down into project specifics, that's perfectly fine. We can take that data that we get from you guys and then put together a plan based on that. We just don't want to move too far forward, present a plan, to you guys, and then you say, oh no, that's nothing what we want, right? We want to try to have some sort of consensus on at least the general categories of projects that we can put together a draft plan for you.
Leland Park, that's done, right? Isn't the court research? Get that under parks. Didn't we do that?
Yeah, we just do that. That was September. Tennis court. Tennis court and basketball court. That was this crack seal and the color. I think your guys' project is.
It's a complete refurbishment. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So yeah, most of these projects, actually all of these projects should not have been projects that have been completed up to this point. So you may see, some areas where we've maybe done a little bit, like, Leland Park, where we've done some maintenance, but not planning for, full resurfacing of tennis courts and basketball courts. So I think it was last meeting or maybe the meeting before that where we talked about Riverside, the park boat launch, right? I think there's been a general consensus that that's, something good. We heard some feedback that, maybe the residents don't want to see something like that. But if we believe that, even maybe it's not the full Riverside Park build out where we redo all of the parking lots and pave a pedestrian path into sort of a, full scale plan, maybe that's something that you guys say, hey, we at least want to go after the bad grant and get our immediate parking lot and the boat ramp upgraded. in the near term, in the next 5 years, right? That can be manageable.
I'd like to see, I like the thought of looking at these grants ahead of time instead of reacting to these when they all of a sudden pop up. I like the crosswalks like here in Maine and down here the street, Kinnickinnick, what is it, Pine? And then Chestnut and Elevator. Yeah, Stonebridge and looking at a grant now, that's why I asked the question is looking at something like that, if we can get involved in a grant program to fix some of those. And you just had mentioned the grant for the continuation of the bike path, I think is pretty cool also. We've talked about it a long time and the land seems to be there. And if we're spending this money on Porter, it'd be cool to hook up, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know, to get out to Porter and park there and be able to ride into Rockford or, you know, park at Porter and be able to run, you know, into Rockton or wherever you want to go, you know what I'm saying? But so instead of reacting to these grants, is maybe look at them now and.
Yeah, so for example, the ITEP grant program, I believe, is a $2 million maximum award. They maybe raised that during the last cycle. If we look at something like the McDonald Road multi-use path extension. So that's where McDonald Road path ends at Ramble Lane Ridge, I believe.
Right.
You know, the goal is to get that down to Porter Park. Our estimated project cost at this point is $1.2 million. That seems like a pretty reasonable, you know, grant to go after because we can get that project all the way to completion. If you look at the Roscoe Road multi-use path, so that's out from Old River Road all the way to downtown Roscoe, looking at an $8.8 million project. A lot of that has to do with the bridge crossing, right? That's not, you know, ITEP is not going to cover that. ITEP does cover preliminary engineering. It will cover funds to hold public meetings. You can basically do some of the preliminary planning to get yourself more grant ready for that. So we could say, you know, if you wanted to go after the McDonald Road multi-use path for 1.2 million, maybe you budget for some of the preliminary engineering at this phase, budget in what the grant application cost would be. And then you might not program the ITEP application until a couple of years out when you know that you're going to potentially be applying for that.
I think ITEP is a 20% match, but all engineering is eligible. What I'm seeing here, the IDNR boat access grant is 100% no matching funds, $200,000 maximum for motorized launch. So that's would be the cost to submit the grant, which I don't know what we would have in that $4,000 or $5,000
typically for
that could then you'd have to obviously design if you got awarded the launch site, but that $200,000 maximum 100% includes any engineering costs.
I like the trails on the path to the crosswalks.
So safety improvements, sounds like safety improvements and multi-use paths for you, Mike.
Yep.
And a lot of these are big ticket, so I see a lot of I don't know, the low hanging fruit, but you got Glock duty weapons for 15,000 and you got the Chicory Ridge Park Pond, 10,000. So I'm just saying on some of that stuff, I don't see why my feeling is we can't get those and then start chipping away at the big ones and then figure out how to prioritize which grants we need to allocate, you know, if we need matching funds or not. One where the 100%, that's almost like you gotta go for that.
You know, we are currently applying for that, right? So that's the bill grant we're currently doing.
Yeah,
With our one.
we don't need matching grants, there's no reason.
That Safe Routes to School, I believe, was just updated to 100% match or 100% funding, I believe.
Whoa. But that's not till 2027, right?
Correct. Yeah, but past experience would tell me that it takes a while on that one, because
That's why I brought it up. If
all the,
we're thinking about it, then let's do it.
all the Americans with Disability Act, design aspect of it is, those projects can get complex in a hurry. So, and that one's not as competitive because, as I told you, there's many municipalities that say, oh, we'll just do it with our own money, instead of play by the complete rules. But yeah, what I'm seeing here is that's currently 100%, but you're right, it would be on the next year's cycle.
Sign costs averaging.
It's really going to depend on,
Yeah, it depends on the complexity of the
Yeah.
project. If you're talking about, just like general resurfacing of roads, that's typically tied to around 6% or 5% of the overall project cost. When you get into full scale reconstructions of projects, that number typically jumps up to 10 to 15%, somewhere in that range. So we have included our engineering costs based on, what we expect the funds used for those projects and what the funding sources limit as far as the coverage of engineering costs. So anywhere between 6 and 15%, I would say, on average, is what the overall project or what the engineering costs are in comparison to the construction costs.
Is it reasonable that you guys go back and get percentages on each one of these grant programs and then exactly what the matchings are? Because I would say, we, over the last couple of years, spent a lot of time focusing on Main Street as trying to develop Main Street to be a draw. And that would facilitate a lot of these other things. I see in your scoring here, that's the one you scored at 20. And obviously, I don't see how you're gonna come up with $19 million to do that. But one, I don't have any understanding of what you say as far as all these different grant programs. What's the likelihood that you can get them? How much would they do? What's the match? Those details would have to be, better known than to try to make a decision tonight. Obviously, we could do low hanging fruit with $250,000. That's all you have.
Yeah.
And
that's why, I think
long term, 10 years, if that's what you're working on. Okay, pick one of these that's really gonna change Roscoe, make it a destination. And that's why we focused on Main Street by doing the zoning and everything we spent already.
Yeah.
So I see that these, you're talking $100 million here for everything on this project. I think you're reasonable. You have to pick one, stay focused on it. That's what we're gonna do, and then just manage the expenses on the stuff you have to do. That's pretty much as good. If you're asking for.
Yeah, and I guess that's, I don't think we were expecting, you guys to say, hey, this project is our priority. If we can get general understandings of at least the categories, I think that, that helps us kind of back into some numbers.
Now, I would just say my opinion is, you gotta pick one of these and get on the horse to ride until you get it done. But you got so many projects. I mean, when's Love Road and Willowbrook, all that stuff. And unless we're gonna have for me, that we can need a better idea of how much grant of 19 million, is that possible? And that's what we've been saving our money for, to be in a position that we'd have the funds to do the matching. But I think we spent a lot of time and effort on Main Street. I'd like to see that. If we do crosswalks, well, those crosswalks you'd be a waste of money, because if you did Main Street, they would be all redone as part of that. So for me, I think we got to focus on one project, ride that horse for 10 years, if that's what it's going to take to get it done, and then do everything else just to manage what we need to. Port Park or something we can fit in there, another place where we focus some money. But I mean, hey, thank you for putting this big list together. Unless you guys are going to loan us $5 or $10 million. We need to have a better understanding. What's the percentage of getting the grants?
I think that's going to be tough, but I understand what you're asking.
What's the amount that we can get? What's the likelihood?
funds?
We need that, for me. And without that information, this is pie in the sky.
One thing I'll caution too, they listed out these grant funds, these programs, and they do look appealing. One thing you gotta make sure that the project itself fits in there, like, say.
Well, that's why I say you don't
Right.
have to tell us something.
No, I
Okay, you
guess.
pick Main Street,
Yes,
go through the list you get. What's the percentage that we have to match it? What's the odds that we're gonna get it? How long are you gonna
right,
take?
so,
I mean,
Yeah.
because you can't pick all of this stuff and, you know, it'd be a waste of time to say, okay, even if you do the low hanging fruit, well, okay, how many people are using the boat dock? Okay, we can do it, we can pay for it, but then I don't have any statistics like how many people are complaining about the boat not down, you know, I don't know. But I think we have to have statistics on each one of these projects, like, well, how important are they to the community? Maybe we use the website and put some of these out there that we think are important, but I don't know. I mean, I don't use the boat dock, so I wouldn't want to spend money on it. But just saying, we have to have better statistical data on each one of these, but I think we have to, the direction I'm giving one person on this is focus on one that's really gonna change this village for the future. That's making a track. Look at what we spend for the hometown holidays, those things, where it's all focused on Main Street and the fall festival. It's all around downtown here is where we are getting traction with the residents, so that's my thoughts.
So yeah, I think we can do that. We can absolutely add we can add the information and I think. We need, I would like to send that out to you guys maybe separately. That way you guys can review it and not have to wait for a board meeting where you're making decisions on your own. That way you guys can. So we can get that out to you guys as far as identifying which potential grants these projects would be eligible for, what the general cost sharing is, 80, 20, 50, 50. And we can absolutely get that information to you guys.
if I may, just, maybe personal opinion, and I can stick my foot in my mouth maybe if I need to, but, to me, the Main Street project doesn't necessarily fit in one of these buckets very well. Because of the, HSIP, that's typically going to be streets with large accident history. I don't know what your accident history is on Main Street, but, it looks like it's slower moving traffic. Your TARP, I definitely wouldn't apply for that for anything other than like Willowbrook or a Love, because the truck access route program, they're going to require you to upgrade all of your intersections to handle the largest truck on the road. Again, I brought up the example of Falcon Road Airport Drive down by the airport. There's a reason that all those intersections are blown out for the biggest truck. It's because they use the TARP funding. They're going to hold you to that, and that's not going to fit in your downtown. Candidly, ITAP is typically for your pedestrian accommodation.
So the enhancement just means.
You could use it as a component of like the larger project in terms of just the bike path portion of Main Street, which was on the east side that was proposed on. So yes, it could be, and there could be multiple funding sources for some of these projects. I'm saying that, Main Street's pretty unique, and streetscape type projects like that don't always necessarily fit great into these grant programs. We certainly can research some more and see if there's some more options, but especially with the uniqueness of your Main Street, you might not like all of the strings that come attached to the funding requirements. So all of a sudden now you're having to close off people's driveways because you have too many driveways onto the street per their policy, where that's not as big of a concern. So I'm just saying, like, that's where we kind of have to take these one at a time, where it can't just be a one size fits all on some of them. I hope that makes some sense.
Well, on Main Street, it's got elevator to McDonald for 19.4. We can't just do it like, say we started right out here and then, it has to all be done at once.
No, I think we could phase some of that. I think some of it becomes a little challenging because of the drainage. They're redoing some of the drainage.
That part could all be done, right? But we didn't have to do all of it at once too.
So yeah, we can absolutely do phasing. It's the logical termini of those phasing that, because you would in a practical sense phasing based on all your storm sewer upgrades and your your curb and gutter and things like that. So it's not as simple as just intersection to intersection that you would typically imagine as part of a phase project or Main Street. Willowbrook, absolutely. That's I shouldn't say simple, but in comparison, a fairly simple project. We can focus on, the Rockland Road intersection and the Prairie Road intersection and then the main line. Main Street's a little bit more nuanced than that, just because of streetscape elements, because of the drainage impacts. Yeah, it's just, understanding that, right, if we're talking about $250,000 a year, over 4 to 5 years, we're at, 1.25 million max. That's not gonna get you much of, the Main Street project. So then it's a discussion of, are there additional funding sources that could be sought after? Is it utilizing MFT? And I know that the goal is to save the MFT funding for matching funds for some of these larger grants, but is that something that you guys want to consider?
I mean, because you could be waiting a long time for matching or for grants. I mean, where if you could start utilizing some of that money, to start building up, the infrastructure or whatever we need to do ahead of time, to get to. I mean, you could always get the grant when we can, but if we need to do more early on.
Yeah, another question, like besides grants, like, I understand, like, we were just talking tonight with budget, paying off our debt for the next 2 years from building this building and another project. Would that be a viable option to look at, like a big hairy audacious goal of what we want to do and look bond of some sort, or taking on a cycle that's not sure where we'll be, obviously, but pretty much from what I'm seeing, very fiscally responsible group for the most part, trying to not, we don't want to bankrupt our village, but is that an option for some of these then to?
Bonds for capital projects?
Most of the region has gone away from it. Rockford used to bond. Many years ago, they would do you actually would go to the polls vote for it every year. You'd increase your property tax by a small amount, and then they would go with bond.
Right.
And they gave you like a list of the projects they're going to do. And that was how they paid for their roadway projects. I mean, they retired that from when they went to the sales tax in, gosh, I don't know, 2006 or whenever it was. But I know that the last one of those bonds was paid off in about 2016 or so that they had. But they did do that. That was about my last experience with it. Because it seems like most of the municipalities we work with have kind of taken a pay-as-you-go approach. It is a possibility.
Right, but in some instances, like there's only so much tax money we can get out of our municipality. There's only so much we can hope for that the state will help us with.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So is there just thinking outside the box solution on how we can fund a project or part of a project at least for a long-term result?
Did not the city of Rockford learn that through bonding, the interest that they had to pay was an opportunity cost measured in fewer miles
Yes.
repaired? So that with the
Yeah.
1% sales tax, they were able literally to get more bang for the buck.
Yeah, I think, they would, their bond measure was, again, going back years, so. Let me put on the exact number, but it was something around like $8 or $9 million. And then that increment, the property tax was dedicated to paying off the bond over the number of years. It was 8 or 9 million, and I think, they projected that 1% sales tax was, and they weren't gonna have to pay any interest was like, I think the first year was 12, 13 million. I'm just using round
Right.
numbers, round.
No, and that's understandable, but they also have a much larger.
Correct.
And commercial districts,
Yes.
like a lot of those taxes that we do within our village limits.
Yes, yeah. No, that is true as
What
well.
about us, just put a toll on Main Street?
Well,
We collect,
The county did a toll.
because you
what-
would collect a lot and
Yeah.
it wouldn't have to be very much.
The bridge, it was Harlem, yeah, and that was, those bonds were just retired, when was that? Toll go through?
Years ago.
Yeah, it was only a few years ago, and that was when those bonds were retired, so I know they bonded for that. So that option is there. It is.
back to Main Street, when Abraham first planned this out, and we have the elaborate plans, it was decided that it was going to be this rural to urban. And was it not 3 sections that were designed? So back to what trustee Mead said, the phasing. I always thought that the phasing was going to be from Swanson to Bridge. And then the center here, and then from Bridge to Elevators. So could we not rethink how we would phase this, to use Bain's expression, and maybe dial down the elaborateness of what was going to happen? Anyone who has ridden, and a lot of people do, that part of Main Street here between our building and south realize how awful that road is. And that's an entry to our village, and it's just terrible.
North is much better, I think.
Right. But wondering if those two are the easier parts of the apple to save for or plan for, and then the segment here will take a little bit of heavier lift. But what trustee Babcock indicated, if you're going to be doing this road, then you will be looking at those intersections. So to do the intersections, or to make the safe intersections, and we all want safe intersections for kids, is kind of out of context if you're going to go back and do the road. You want to have a whole vision here. So can you go back and relook at those plans for Main Street and ask what would be a logical phasing and what would be a more economical way? Here you have some part of it as, for example, the Y to the bridge, general maintenance, resurfacing and patching at 1.5 in today's dollars. That's kind of doable, and maybe that's all that's needed for that section. And then the same thing here in Elevator, and then the larger plan for the middle. Yes, I'd love to see the utilities buried, but that's too expensive. I'd love to have wonderful curbs and all this plantscape and all of this stuff, but it's not going to happen at 19.4. So phasing and what is realistic and what is economical, and it all goes back to drawing people. If we want downtown to be an economic engine and we want it attractive to people, we have to make it attractive to people.
Couldn't you make Main Street, like Charles said, you already have it broken down, one, Main Street maintenance, 4.5. But just,
We can do some additional.
just like the parade,
Absolutely.
the parade only goes to Williams. For left, so don't do it all the way first time, but I mean, right now, where we get traction is with the Fall Festival, the parade, the hometown holiday. Those are the things all focused around Main Street. I think we just need to stay focused there. Manage everything else that we have to do with the 250,000, but I think we have to focus on, and then we can start messaging that out to the village. Here's what we're doing. You know, you can put all these projects out here, but here's what we do, and then you get more people involved. So.
And when you speak of, raising revenue, the only way to raise revenue would be to impose a 1% sales tax locally by board action, and that would garner you over $1.5 million a year. You can also look at what's going to be the economic driver, what's going to be growing so that we can collect additional dollars. And that's always going to be Willowbrook, Rockton, and Love. So perhaps going after the grants for that and keeping a focus on that, because that is the engine that, if that is developed and if you get growth in that area, that will generate additional dollars that you can use in other areas of our community. So I see economic impact of both places as important, one that supports the other, one that finances the other.
I think following his path, and I think the board might want to think about this someday, is we spend relatively close to $1 million on a residential subdivision. Maybe it's time we spend $1 million on the YMCA down the bridge. How many cars
Oh, yeah.
up and down that road? And you can fight it, I shouldn't say fight it, you can sell it by the fact that it's great to do neighborhoods, but how many people drive through those neighborhoods? Hang on, how many people drive up and down this road? For 1 year, instead of tackling a residential community, maybe we take $1 million and try to find some other dollars that we can squirrel away somehow and spend $1 million in different phases of a road that's traveled by, I could be wrong, thousands of cars a day.
I'm gonna get your traffic count here in 1 second.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying, is instead of,
In addition to that,
you
you
can-
can have a road where you can start messaging people that are going down it to say,
here's that's your new road,
And it's
and
gonna,
everybody uses it.
yeah.
it's gonna affect more people.
Instead
I
of
think that's a
looking
good-
at a residential neighborhood, maybe it's time we look at that and say, this is where we're gonna put our money this year. Hello, folks.
Yeah.
There's more cars in this street than will be in your neighborhood in the next 10 years.
I don't know how many people
You
actually
hit two
recognize.
birds with one stone there, though.
3,000.
Not
3,000
only do more
vehicles a day.
people drive and use it, it's also a residential area, so.
Well, I guess, yeah, you could say it is.
You
We're
can
helping
call-
those residents, the
You can-
downtown
You can
residents.
call it.
You're at 3,000 vehicles a day south of Bridge, north of Bridge, you're at 5,600.
You could sell it by, it's downtown people using the roads.
Here, North Bridge North is 5,600, and then closer to Elevator, you're at 4,750. Those are,
And I think that's something
Last
that
year's
Mike
traffic
brought up.
counts.
It's also a messaging that you can sell that to the village because everybody's down the street. I mean, you go at 5 o'clock on Main Street, I mean, it's bumper to bumper. I think
Both directions.
my earlier question is we close down 251, force them to go down Main Street, and charge them $1 at each end. I mean, we're talking millions of
That's
dollars.
what happened when they, that's
All
what
right.
happened when we do the bridge. People are going to be going around
We're
anyway.
getting too far away from here.
No, I mean, I think we've got the general, you
Yeah,
got,
let's-
definitely, you wanna see the breakdown of the budgeting.
You
just
guys
see the
can
cost
communicate,
mitigation, some
you got an
additional,
idea of where.
some additional phasing on the Main Street
Let's-
project.
you know, when we get $79 million, so we could do everything.
And I think what we should probably do at this point is we should take a stab at just what we think based on these discussions would be a logical plan. And present a draft plan for you guys' feedback, focusing on, economic drivers like Willowbrook Road. Right, and then we're getting into some of them, maybe our ones of what are the roads that are more traveled. If there are structures that need to be repaired on that or safety improvements that need to be done, we can try to develop a draft.
In your,
plan, I guess.
in your opinion, though, like the developmental availability on Love, that not be a better focus? And we're looking at.
I mean, I would tell you, if I had my pick of priorities between those three projects, it would be Willowbrook Road. And the reason for that, the village is going after a grant right now. R1 is pursuing that for the Love Road project. Potentially 100% cost covered. I think the Willowbrook that has an established corridor, it is a failing roadway that needs to be, addressed pretty soon. The intersection with the Rockton Road currently cannot support additional development. If you remember the Starbucks discussion, and you guys were here, right? If anybody wants to do anything different that is not what's currently approved there, intersection improvements will be required, bottom line. That's all, so getting some of those projects started to then bring in development and generate additional sales tax, I would see that as the priority.
Right.
Love Road would be number 2, could be 1A, 1B. They're both very important. Main Street, I personally view that as more of a want than a need. Right. I think the condition of the road, maybe a resurfacing project should be a priority, but as far as the full reconstruction, maybe that's not something that the village sees as a need right now.
Or it's financed by what happens out east.
All right, thank you.
We'll get some funding information
Good.
together. Absolutely.
I think, we were talking here, that highway safety improvement program, goals reduce number of deaths and serious injuries due to crashes in the state of Illinois. So we might talk about if there's some crash data, maybe in Willowbrook and Rockton or something of that could rise up to that. That's what that program's for. And so, and that wouldn't necessarily come with any strings attached because we designed that to the IDOT standard. So.
We'll send that information out to you guys in advance of the meeting. That way, hopefully we get some feedback from you before then.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, number 6, discussion and recommendation related to the renewal of village administrator employment agreement. You want to read the resolution, Tom, for everyone?
You need it read?
You guys, I don't need it. I'm just opening up if anyone wants to hear it.
Basically, it's a resolution of non-renewal. Pretty clear what it is.
No, we can read.
Yeah.
It's there in the document.
So you just need a
Okay.
motion to forward it to the board?
Motion in a second, anyone? So moved.
Motion, second.
Kim? Thank you.
Wright,
Yes.
Babcock,
No.
Simon,
Yes.
Babcock, I'm sorry, Rhoda,
Yes.
Mead.
Yes.
Very good, thank you. Last of public comments? Anyone? Anyone online? No? No presentations, no executive session needed. All in favor of adjournment and no motion for adjournment? So moved. Anyone? Second? Need a second? Second. All in favor of? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.